What is up, everybody, and welcome to the OG's NBA show for Wednesday. I'm here. I'm hosting. As you can tell, Big Beer is on vacation, he's taking a little 2 week break on us. So we're gonna try to grind this thing out these next couple weeks without him. So he's got me putting all this heavy work here doing this hosting, but we're gonna get it through it, and we're gonna get through this NBA slate. It's a really good one. It's a Wednesday, so it's always packed. And as always on the OG show, I'm joined by at least Notorious. So Notorious is here. Notorious, how you doing, man?
Yeah, doing good. Proud of your Houston team. Getting to the Final Four. That's pretty cool. Masters next week. I'm excited for that. And we got our boy Kirk on with us. So excited for that. But the bad news is our picks last week were absolutely terrible. We all went 1-2. And the only reason we went 1-2 was because we all had the Jazz, the free pick of the night. So looking to bounce back in terms of our picks.
Well, now don't bring up the Houston Cougars around me and Kirk because I guess there's some bad blood on Kirk's part there, man. I'm about to get ripped into it right now. So let's bring on Kirk Deese. He's filling in today. He's taking on an analyst role. Kirk, how's it going, man?
I'm doing okay. Could be better. A couple of bad losing picks yesterday from a good friend, but we're not even going to go there. Anyways, so it's funny that Noto mentioned Houston because I shared a pool with a good friend of mine who lives in the area, and man, like he was in charge of the picks with another guy, and we see Houston winning, and we look down. This is a high stakes bracket, and this guy who lives down the street from Houston had them losing in the second round, and then he has the nerve to go on after every win on Twitter to victory lap it on Twitter, but yet he picked against them. So a little disappointed there. But
here's the thing about that is they stuck that guy making the bracket with this Big Ten homer who overshadowed everything he said and just totally wanted to go all Big Ten. And like there's just a certain point where the guy has to just wave the white flag and say, you know what, all right, I'm going to let you make some picks here. So and that was that. It probably should have been a little bit better orchestrated, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is.
We're not one to point fingers.
Yeah, we're not gonna point fingers. It's a tough spot to be in. Being a homer is a tough spot because if you pick your team and they flame out, why'd you pick you only picked your team because you're a homer, and if you don't pick your team and they do well, then you got to hear the opposite. But it's all right because we're here to talk NBA. We got a big slate here. Just generally speaking, we got some pretty good injury stuff that's going to happen. Man, we're getting injury news right and left here. I'm getting all kinds of stuff across my ticker here. This is crazy. I'm distracted now, but we'll get to that in a minute. So basically, as always, you're going to have to tune in to these games until the very last one tips off because that's how you get your edge right now. So just looking at the injuries that we've seen come in so far today, start off with Notorious. Is there anything that stands out to you that you say, now that's one I've got to attack right there?
Yeah, two situations for me. This really feels like a cash game slate where there's just a lot of obvious value plays. First, the Jazz. No Donovan Mitchell, so you're going to get more minutes for Clarkson, Conley. Joe Ingles, Boyan's pretty cheap across the industry. And then OKC, they're down pretty much everyone. They're missing 4 starters. And another guy was just ruled out recently. So they're going to be shorthanded. They got a decent matchup at home against the Raptors. So point per dollar, I think there's like 4 guys on each team that you can easily jam in there. And then we got some obvious studs in play as well. Injury news that I'm waiting on. John Wall is still questionable. If he ends up being out, I think Kevin Porter becomes a really interesting option. We've seen him smash in these spots before. And he plays a lot of garbage time, which is nice. That game does have a pretty big spread against the Nets. And that's pretty much all I'm monitoring at the moment.
Kurt, you got any of the injuries that absolutely stand out? Not any of the little knick-knack stuff like Dean would be on here for 30 minutes talking about body parts from the 12th guy on the bench, but anything that like jumps out to you?
The only piece of news that I'm waiting on is really the key piece of news, and Noto touched on it, was John Wall. That's a big one because Kevin Porter Jr., his rates go berserk. He would get all the usage he can handle, all the minutes he can handle, and that would probably change the slate there. I guess Christian Wood is probable, but it's potentially possible that he could be out, but that would open up Kelly Olynyk. But we already got Jaylen Brown news. Did we get Zach Levine?
I haven't
Uh,
seen
he-
a Levine yet.
Because
Yeah.
Sato could open some things up too, because they're going to be really short on guards if he's out.
Yeah, Kobe
so
White's questionable too.
oh, there you go. It's a good day to be having the situation room pulled up on your screen and refreshing that one, and having the RG app and having those injuries break for you through push notifications. And speaking of RG Premium, you want to. I'm using the Lineup HQ tonight as I use that quite a bit. There's a promo link we're going to drop here in the chat for $10 off. $10 off the RG Premium. Now you get to select the sports and whatever packages that you want to put together right there. You put together your own package, man, and get $10 off with that code RG Premium. Get it? Good stuff. That's what you need. You got to have something big time. You got to have, if you're going to keep up with the NBA, man, you got to have the projections. You got to have the injury news faster than anybody else, and we got it here. So, Kirk can attest to the projections here, man. The projections at RG, like, didn't you run some kind of a thing, earlier correlation thing earlier this year, and RG's was just off the charts, especially on FanDuel.
They were at the top for a while there. I think they had a rough little stretch, brought them down for a little bit, but I was running the R squared. It was at the top for anything. But the projections are just incredible these days. A lot. They were like a few years ago, they were a little lacking, and then they. The powers that be put Noto and Meansy and Tuttle and all the smart people involved, SBK. So those projections are good now.
Yeah,
I definitely use them.
SBK is a guy who should be, if he can find time to call in, he should be calling in here in a little bit and talking to us about some of the projections tonight. So while we wait on that, let's just go ahead and get to it. Where we on this particular show, we like to go position by position, loosely, but we'll go position by position. So I got my eyes focused on FanDuel because that's where I'm playing tonight. Kirk, I'm going to let you, when it's your turn, you can bring up the Yahoo salary stuff because I know that's where you make your mark. They call you Kid Yahoo for a reason, so you got that going for you. And Noto, you are the DraftKings guy, so if you guys want to stick to those kind of salaries, we can cover all the bases on this show and it'll be good. So let's start off at point guards. And this is, well, depending on what site you're at, you could get a hold of, definitely getting a hold of Mike Conley here, maybe even some Jordan Clarkson. Those are the two big names at point guard, I think, that are popping in the projections. So start off with notorious point guards. Talk to me.
Yeah, the two you mentioned going to be pretty popular. We have them projected as the highest owned guys on both sites, right there with Harden on DraftKings. But hard not to like him. Mitchell, high usage guy. Also, gets a decent number of peripheral stats as well. Clarkson's averaged 40 fantasy points per game in his absence. I think Conley's up to like 36 fantasy points per game without him on the floor. So definitely two guys that you can look at. If I'm choosing between one of them, I'm going with Clarkson. I think he has a much higher ceiling than Conley does. A lot of people bring up the Conley revenge narrative, but it doesn't really seem like the type to be, having a revenge game. He's just going to play his game. Teo Maledon, I think he's certainly interesting. Thunder very short-handed. Toronto has struggled against guards. Historically, Lowry's been a good defender, but that just hasn't been the case this season. I don't know if it's a motivation thing or if he's just getting a little bit older, but I think he's going to play minutes in the low 30s, so I like Maledon quite a bit. Obviously, on DraftKings, we're going to look to Harden, but I'll kind of save my spiel for him when we talk about shooting guards. And that's it. I mean, those three kind of seem like the obvious plays. I'm hoping you guys can point me in a direction of some good tournament options.
Kirky, is there any reason to get off of the chalk at this? But this is the heavy chalk right here. Is there any reason to get off of it at this position?
Well, it depends. There's some really, at least for like Yahoo builds that I was playing around with. I mean, everyone's going to be jamming in these Utah guys, and my first thought was, okay, how many Utah guys is too many Utah guys? Because what's their real ceiling here? Because these guys don't have the high ceilings. Now, Clarkson, I think, does bring the ceiling to the table. And the nice thing is that he's averaged over 31 minutes in games without Donovan Mitchell in there. So that's all we ever need from him. We need efficiency because he's a scorer, he's a shooter. That's how he makes his money, gets his fantasy points. But he occasionally gets some steals and whatnot. But so the upside is going to come from scoring, efficiency, and minutes. And it's nice to see that at least he's been getting over 30 minutes in this situation. So Conley, I kind of worry about, although you do get that little revenge narrative against his old former team. but I don't know what the real ceiling is. So especially on a site like Yahoo, he's the first one I'm looking to fade out of all of them, because then there's other guys like there's Bogdanovich, who's cheap, on all sites pretty much, and Royce O'Neal is the guy that's going to get popular. I'm probably not too interested there, but there's a lot of different ways to go. And if like Sato opens up, because if we get a bunch of these guards going, then I can fit some studs like Julius Randle or some guys that are going to be lower owned tonight that have a massive upside.
Yeah, there's some other spots you can look at. I do like the Utah combo guards right there, but San Antonio, DeJounte Murray, Derek White. I mean, Derek White sometimes looks really, really bad. But sometimes he can put up a nice little stat line. So they've got a good matchup tonight against Sacramento. The one thing I do like about that game is Sacramento's fighting for the play-in playoff spot. So at least we know they're going to play hard, and San Antonio's the same way. They're actually a playoff team, so we don't have to worry about any of this funny business like you may have to worry about some funny business with Houston, who's obviously tanking and things like that. So that's an interesting spot right there. Guys, I see some questions in chat. Please, do it. Fill out all your questions right there. Throw them out there. If I can't answer them right now, as we go along here, we'll save them and answer them later. Devin will keep track of them, and we'll circle back around and get them all. And also, don't forget, we're doing our picks later on. The chat, I need you to drop your favorite point spreads, your favorite totals for tonight. And if you put in there that it's a lock, then you got a better chance of having that thing selected for our show. So, get those in there so we can fill that out later. And that's near the end of the show, but fire them off and we'll keep track. So let's move it on down the road here. Let's talk about some shooting guards. I'm looking at my shooting guards on FanDuel here, and really this is kind of a dry spot. Kirk, you mentioned Joe Ingles. I don't know if I'm in love with Mr. Ingles, man, but for that ownership, I think I could probably get away from him. The one guy I do have circled on my sheet came later this afternoon when Kyle Lowry got ruled out. I can play some Fred VanVleet now. I can get behind a little Fred VanVleet, but let's start off with Kirk and the shooting guard position. What you got?
Yeah, so I mean, see, it all depends on which site. Which site am I talking here?
You're on Yahoo, man.
I'll try to look at yours too, FanDuel. But so on Yahoo for sure, VanVleet is definitely in play. But Jordan Clarkson is the massive chalk piece. You can play them both. Cheap guy like Kenrich Williams is usable. He's been, OKC is just they've waived they're just playing all the young guys, and he's getting extra run in facilitating that offense as kind of the backup point guard, but also sharing some court time with Maladon as well. And he just looks a little bit better and than Maladon, but he hasn't had some massive games. But he's a guy you can go for cheap. Gary Trent Jr. is a guy who can go for cheap. Who was nice to see in his last game with Toronto that he played 38 minutes, which is massive run. Took 15 shots, wasn't very efficient, but this is a guy that can knock down a bunch of jumpers. He doesn't not a big shot creator in his own right, which makes me really like guys like VanVleet. And my favorite play on the slate is Siakam, that we'll get to later. But he's someone that I could use. Diallo is someone I could use, but the only thing that scares me with Diallo, I think they're gonna get a good look at him and they're gonna keep playing him. So I don't think the minutes are in jeopardy that much. But they just stopped playing Josh Jackson basically the last 2 days, and they're trying all sorts of funky lineups in Detroit. So I just worry about everybody a little bit in Detroit. But he's someone that rates us pretty well. And then there's some studs that are going to go low, and like Devin Booker. No one's going to really play him when VanVleet is on the board, but he certainly can bring some upside to the table. That's where I'm looking.
Noto, what do you have for the shooting guards?
Yeah, Kirk mentioned a lot of them. I'm glad he brought up Gary Trent. We know Nick Nurse doesn't mind playing his guys 40 minutes. We've seen Trent play 40 minutes a number of times for Portland earlier this season. And yeah, he just kind of gets there somehow. Like you said, he doesn't create his own shot all that well, but he just ends up with a big stat line at the end of the day. So I like him as a value play. I'm certainly fine with Joe Ingles. He has had some really big games, randomly, and he's going to be one of the main, distributors in this offense. They like to run their offense through him when Mitchell's off the floor. So don't mind Ingles. Love the Van Vliet call. He sees a .09 fantasy point per minute boost without Lowry. He's probably going to see a couple extra minutes as well. Then you got James Harden in a revenge spot at home against the Rockets. I think he's going to be pretty popular. I do worry about that game getting out of hand if John Wall ends up being out. I still think I'll play Harden, but that line could move to 13 or 14 if Wall ends up being out. So just keep an eye on that. A couple other names that are going to be lower owned on the Thunder. You have Svi, and then you have Ty Jerome. Thunder again missing 5 key guys. So everyone that's going to be active is going to be playing big minutes. Pretty good matchup against Toronto. I like that it's at home. I like that they're trying to develop their young guys, so we don't have to worry about them sitting in the fourth quarter. And then Tyrese Halliburton continues to play big minutes. I keep waiting for a big game from him, and I think it's coming. So 5.6K for him on FanDuel. He's playing minutes in the mid-30s. Don't mind looking at him in tournaments.
Noto, I want to stick with you for just a minute. And you know what? Before we do that, and this is a good segue, SBK's here, and we got some questions for him. So let's bring in SBK and talk to us about the projections. Lots of stuff going on, lots of news happening here in the recent minutes. SBK, man, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you boys doing?
We are doing all right. Trying to fill out this show, trying to help the people here. So talk to me about some of the news tonight that's come through here, and some of this recent news, specifically. Like, I was just going to ask the boys about. We got news recently. Kendrick Nunn is out, and we know Oladipo's not going to play. How does this? What are we thinking for that backcourt tonight?
So yeah, it looks like we have gotten that update pushed out already. So Tyler Hero now up to 33 minutes. Goran Dragic, we still have at 24. I imagine that I'm at least going to push for that to come up a little bit with no Nunn. But yeah, it looks like Hero 5.4 on DraftKings, 33-minute projection, basically 31 fantasy points. So he's kind of a nice, appealing mid-range option. Jimmy Butler still popping off the page, kind of 46 fantasy points, 8.8K. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like which guards win, it looks like Hero's kind of the guy there. Dragic hasn't really gotten much of a bump, but I would imagine over the course of the next half an hour, maybe he's a little bit higher than he is now. Maybe some of those minutes come from Gabe Vincent, or maybe Bielitsa kind of goes back down to like 4 or 3 minutes, something like that. But yeah, no, I guess huge winners. But yeah, I do think Hero is kind of a more interesting mid-range option, and Butler's still very appealing at the top.
All right, talk us through this this Utah thing tonight. It seems like that's going to be the big chalk, and we've known that all day long. So everybody's kind of preparing for it. We got the Donovan Mitchell and his heavy usage, a lot of shot attempts, a lot of minutes out of the game. Who's most likely to benefit most, and who's most likely to be fool's gold out there, man?
So yeah, the Jazz probably were the team that took me, I think, the longest to go through it and project last night, just because we haven't had much of Mitchell missing. So it's not like Mike Conley where we have a bunch of games where we can kind of just easily look at and see where the production and minutes are going to go. This is a little bit of a different situation. Jordan Clarkson, 31.6% usage rate in over 600 minutes with Mitchell off the floor this year, about 1.18 fantasy points per minute. He looks like the opposite of fool's gold. He does look like a very appealing target. Mike Conley, another guy who gets a small bump, not a massive increase. He's averaging 1.09 fantasy points per minute, about 500 minutes without Mitchell on the floor. There is, for those that are into the narrative type of stuff, Conley obviously spent a large portion of his career in Memphis. This game is in Memphis. So at 5.8K on DraftKings, he's projected for about 36 fantasy points. It's kind of tough to get away from him there. I think if I only had to pick one, though, I do kind of think I'd lean toward Clarkson if I only can choose one of those two guards. But Joe Ingles, another guy who's about a shade under a fantasy point per minute with no Mitchell. Rudy Gobert is another guy who gets a bump. As you can probably guess, a lot of these guys' fantasy point per minute numbers come up somewhat. But the main winners, I think, here are Clarkson, Conley, Ingles. I do think Gobert is a mildly more appealing play. I think a lot of people obviously look to the guards with no Mitchell, but Gobert plus 0.09 fantasy points per minute, in terms of differential with Mitchell off. So a non-negligible bump there, I would say. So Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting names on the Utah side.
Noto, do you have anything?
Yeah, we currently have Andre Drummond projected to play 22 minutes in his Lakers debut. What do you think his ceiling is in terms of playing time?
Probably 26 or 28. I mean, in terms of like a realistic, what could I actually project as a ceiling? I mean, could I see him get 30 minutes? I guess I wouldn't be super surprised by that, but it has been a while since he's played in a game. The last time he played actual minutes was February 12th. So it's been, well over a month now. And even at that point, 17 minutes, 16 minutes in 2 games that he had played last. So I'd be kind of surprised if they go out and push him for like regular starters minutes. I mean, they still have Montrezl Harrell there, who I imagine they're going to try to give minutes in the mid to high 20s too. And I do not imagine those two will find the floor together at all. So I think that's really the biggest reason why I have kind of a hard time projecting him for more than 22.
Turkey, you got anything for SBK?
That was the real situation I wanted to get a take on because, man, I mean, if he played a ton of minutes at that FanDuel price, look out.
What do you guys think is going to happen? Like, what do you guys think in terms of minute projection for Drummond? Like, where are you guys at?
I mean, I'm not a minutes projecting guy, but I think it's a pretty good spot. I think they picked him up for him to help them ride this wave of these injuries. So I think they're gonna throw him into the fire. I think he's in a pretty good spot. What about you guys?
I got nothing. I'd like to pull up lineup HQ, see what you guys got, and go from there.
I think there's a massive range of outcomes here. I think you probably nailed that range and the median projection, somewhere probably around 24 minutes. Maybe we get a little bump, but like it wouldn't shock me if he plays over 30 in this game if he is in shape. I mean, and there's reports saying that he's thinned down, he's in shape. So
some would say the best shape of his life he's in.
Yeah.
But
I don't even know if I'm really worried about that aspect of it. It's mainly, I think, how do they use him and Harrell? Like, obviously, they're not. I would have a very hard time believing they play them together at all. So it's, are they going to cut Harrell's minutes where he's only playing like 18 or 20? Like that's the thing that I'm still. I don't think that they cut him that much yet. But yeah, I mean that's going to be obviously one of the more interesting situations to watch tonight.
I got a question for you before we get you out of here. Is this Houston situation tonight? John Wall's questionable, Christian Wood's questionable. Like if we project them in, they're going to get good numbers. Talk to me about if we project them out, the if thing. If we project them out, what's going to happen? And then if they are out, like are we moving down the Brooklyn player? Like what does the projections do with Brooklyn in such an obvious blowout risk? What do you think about that?
So generally, like when we have spreads that are kind of this wide, I think last night it was 14.5, and I think now it's 12.5 at most spots for this one. If Wall sits at 12.5, if Wall sits in it, I don't know. Christian Wood's probable, so I don't imagine he won't play. But I can't see at this point this line going to more than like 13.5 or 14, even if Wall sits. So I don't know that we'll change much to the Nets. I kind of tried to bake in a little bit of that kind of blowout risk last night, although it looks like kind of they've come up kind of a little bit as well. So yeah, I mean, on the Houston side, we do have a what if for if Wall's out, so you can kind of see like where our projections will go on the Houston side. Kevin Porter would get a nice size bump. Sterling Brown would kind of somewhat come onto the radar, but then again, kind of not really. So yeah, Porter would be kind of the big winner there. Christian Wood still would. His price kind of fallen, and he's still projected kind of at a point where I could see even optimizers kind of working him in there. So yeah, I don't know that much would change on the Brooklyn side. We'd maybe kind of come down like a minute on the starters, the regular rotation players. But yeah, I don't think really much will change on the Brooklyn side. And if you do want to see what we have on the Houston side for no Wall, you can go and check out the what if projections. Awesome.
Well, SBK, we do appreciate you coming by and giving us the scoop on some of the inside info tonight, man. And
anytime, fellas.
All right, we'll catch you next time. So that's it for SBK. This is good stuff right there, guys. That's the inside, man. That's the guy what is it? Who's the guy behind the curtain in Wizard of Oz? That's the guy behind the curtain right there doing the numbers. So, guys, any thoughts on any of that? What he said, Kirk? You got anything that stood out to you?
No, it's really interesting to see what they're going to do with Drummond. I mean, that's the thing that stands out because his price is so cheap and like all that block upside, all the rebounding upside, and also what it'll be interesting to see what he takes away from Kuzma.
Okay, so are you more inclined to, like, let's say you're looking at RG projections, minutes and everything, and you're even looking at other places too, and they're saying the same thing. It does, but it doesn't look high to you. Are you more likely to say, well, everybody agrees that he's only going to play 20 minutes and this is probably a ceiling? Or are you more likely to say, I'm going to go on my own here. I think this guy is going to crush. Which one would you go to?
Throw all our money in the table on Drummond is what I would do.
Okay, good idea. Let's do it. Let's go to some small forwards and kick it off here with Notorious. Talk me through some of your small forward favorites on DraftKings.
All right. So before I get there, some inside information from Alec Rodriguez in the chat. He says Shams says Drummond could play up to 30 minutes tonight. He also says he's been on Jeannie Buss's Instagram, and she's been posting pictures with Drummond saying they're going to sign him to a multi-year deal, giving him the motivation to play well. So if we need more reasons to push our chips in on Drummond, there you go. Small forward, FanDuel, I think even with John Wall being questionable, I think Kevin Porter is still going to be one of the better options over there. 5.5K, they're shorthanded still, so I like him quite a bit. I don't know about Kuzma. I think I'd rather just go in on Drummond rather than Kuzma. I know he's been playing well, so I'll take a wait and see approach there for tournaments. I don't mind going to somebody like OG Anunoby. Jimmy Butler's in a pretty good spot with no Kendrick Nunn. He's been quiet recently, but now he's a lot cheaper than he was the last couple of weeks. Guys on DraftKings, you can get Ingles over there. I like Hamidou Diallo. Kirk talked about him a little bit. We saw him play, his high in minutes with the Pistons the other night and could draw the start tonight. So I like him quite a bit. Gary Trent also was small forward eligible over on DraftKings.
Turkey, what say you on this small forward position?
Well, on Yahoo, Bogdanovich is min price, so he just looks like an awesome play. And Joe Ingles is $20, at twice the price. Both good plays, but Bogdanovich is you just got to take that for $10. You can play guys looking for a little bit more upside. At DeMar DeRozan, who's coming off of a kind of a dud in his last game against Sacramento. But you'll notice when teams play each other for the second time, it's usually like exactly opposite of what happened the game before. So if somebody goes off, the team locks down that player. The other player usually has a better game. So I would look for a bounce back for DeRozan in this great matchup against Sacramento. You could look to a guy like Chris Middleton, Jimmy Butler for sure. That's Mikal Bridges he's been balling. I don't know if anyone's been noticing, but besides his last game against the Hawks, but he just plays that intense D, has that steal upside. I think, the Bulls 30th dead last in opponent steals per game. So that's something I'm definitely interested in on FanDuel and Yahoo.
Yeah, I'm kind of with both of you guys here. OG was the one guy I really singled out just based on salary on FanDuel. Pretty good salary. He's been really good. You got Lowry out. You got Powell out of the picture now, who's another guy we can talk about if we wanted to, but he's in the late game. But OG looks like he's in a really good spot. Jimmy Butler. I think Jimmy Butler, nice little price came down a little bit after Bam was injured for that time and Butler was putting up those monster lines. His price jumped way up. Now his price is pretty reasonable. So I'm on that page, and there's not a whole lot of salary savers. Kirk pulled out the min price on Yahoo. Anytime you get a min price guy, you're in good shape right there. It doesn't need much to pay it off, so you can go that route. But there's no min price, none of those min price sleepers on FanDuel. So you kind of got. I'd rather stick at the top if I was in that position. But it is what it is. We're getting the word from Kirky that Jaylen Brown is the play tonight, right, against Dallas. You like Jaylen Brown, don't you?
No, I mean, I don't dislike him. I'm not. Haven't really thought about it much. I don't have much.
You're our Boston insider, man.
I played Tatum the other night, and I felt like a genius in the first half, and then the dude just shut down in the second half. Still had a good game, but I mean, Robert Williams, I definitely like tonight for sure on Celtics. But I mean, it's tough. It's tough to know what what you're going to get out of Jalen tonight, what they're going to do with him, how they're going to run him out, how many minutes.
So I'm as notorious this one. When you get a game like Brooklyn, and it's an obvious spot that Brooklyn knows they're going to win this game more than like they got to be feeling it. A guy like Harden and even Kyrie, like I think that maybe they go through the motions. Are you more likely to roster like a guy like Joe Harris at small forward tonight, thinking, well, they'll get Joe Harris more involved, or is he, or are those kind of fringe players still just off the board for you?
I mean, they're off the board for me. The slate's big enough that I don't think you need to go there. He's been pretty bad lately too. Bruce Brown, he'll have a big game every once in a while, but there's just so much value elsewhere. I would have a lot less interest in Harden if it wasn't a revenge game against his former team. They do play again tomorrow, which isn't great, and they're double-digit favorites. So there's certainly a chance that we could see all the studs kind of sit out that fourth quarter. And someone in chat brought up Kenrick Williams. I think he's certainly interesting too, especially if Ty Jerome ends up being out for the Thunder.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, don't forget to fire off some questions, and we'll keep track of them and get to them later. And also fire off your bets. I'll keep track of them. I'm looking. I got my eye on it. I'm going to mark down all the bets, and I'll pick out the best three, and then that'll be y'all's guys' bets. But let's talk about some Monkey Knife Fight. We got a little partnership with Monkey Knife Fight here, and we made some picks for you guys. Now, listen, I'm not one to toot my own horn. Now, I'm not a horn tooter, man, but I did nail that 4-teamer here on Friday, but I think that was prize pick. But regardless, it was a nice little. So I got a little 3-teamer I got for you guys tonight. All right, Monkey Knife Fight. Let's pull up that graphic right now. Hopefully, we get a competitive game in Brooklyn, because that's where I went with my picks. I took Harden over the rebounds, because if it was more Harden kind of focusing on his teammates, I don't need to worry about the points. He gets 9.5 rebounds typically in his sleep in a game like this. So I took the 9.5 rebounds over. Hopefully Christian Wood comes out to play 20.5 points. I like that over. And John Wall, he's questionable, but if he plays, he's been over 7.5 assists quite a bit lately. I think the 7.5 number is pretty good. He's a little bit less scoring lately, more assisting. So those are the three guys I got. I like a little 3-teamer. Noto, let's go to you. Who do you got?
Yeah, honestly, I like yours a little bit more than mine now that I'm looking at it. But I got De'Aaron Fox over 45.5 against the Spurs. Pretty good matchup for him. DeJounte Murray, he's a good defender, but the Spurs as a whole, not very good against combo guards. So over 45.5 there. And then Rudy Gobert over 44.5. His numbers against Memphis have been awesome over the last couple of seasons. And no Mitchell. He actually sees a pretty big boost with Mitchell off the floor.
Kirk, I saw you put your boy Siakam in there. You're a Siakam fan tonight. Talk to me about your Monkey Knife Fight pick.
Yep. Siakam over 45.5. He's my favorite player in the slate. Basically, with Lowry out, we can expect both he and FVP to facilitate the offense, to facilitate the offense. They just don't have anyone else really to do it. So that's a huge boost for the ball and to his, letting him run the offense. Also, the OKC is terrible in transition. They've given up so many transition baskets over the last month. And where does Siakam excel? It's when he gets those steals, when he's pushing the pace and he's out in transition. So I think it just works perfectly for him. Plus, OKC gives up tons of steals, 27th in opponent steals per game. I think he's going to have a massive night tonight.
So you're talking about Lowry being out and Powell being gone, and
that's with Trent. Trent is not a shot creator. Trent's going to be the guy looking for that three, the open three. It's going to have to be Van Vliet or Siakam to get it to him.
Well, we're about to start talking about some big guys here. Is there with all that going on in Toronto, are we ever going to get back to the Chris Boucher that we saw a few weeks ago, or you predict anything for him tonight? Anything good?
Yeah, I think I think it's worth I don't know. I can't say I have a crystal ball that he's definitely going to get the minutes tonight, but I think it makes a lot of sense for him to get the minutes tonight. I think he matches up well, even with Moses. So yeah, tonight would make all the sense in the world for Boucher, and his price has certainly come down on all sites, and you get that block and steal outside in what should be a really sloppy game. I mean, these teams have not been playing good defense for a long time now. So this is a game that's just so ripe for a game environment. So yeah, definitely think he's in play.
Talk to me about some other power forwards you got on your list.
All right. So Isaiah Roby basically just exploded in his last game. So we usually would be a little cautious there, but I still like him again tonight. There's OG, but depending on the site, whether he's small forward or power forward, there's Jeremy Grant. The guy that I think is a total fade is Kuzma.
Oh,
I think he's been so active on the boards, and it's really helped out in his fantasy points, and also with putbacks and scoring. It just, his overall line just has become so much better. I think Drummond is going to just eat up all those rebounds. So he's a guy I'm looking to fade. But I love Julius. I mean, Julius Randle is going to be like low owned tonight against Minnesota. I mean, just think about that. Like, against Minnesota, this team is horrendous. And he's going to get a ton of minutes, and he's going to be out there gunning. So I think this is a massive ceiling spot for him. And I love the Knicks in this spot too. So there's a pick for you if we're doing picks. I'll take the Knicks against the spread.
well, we got some big news here breaking on the show. We got John Wall is out tonight, guys. So we can put the monkey knife fight stuff to bed. We can scratch that one off, make that one a little two-teamer. John Wall is out, so let's circle back to that real quick, because that's a pretty big deal. Sterling Brown looks like he's going to draw the start tonight, but I think it probably helps other guys even more. I'll start off with Notorious. John Wall officially out. What does that do for you?
Yeah, KBJ, pretty much a core play on FanDuel. I think you can probably call him a core play on DraftKings as well. His rates are just through the roof without him and Oladipo off the floor. Obviously, Oladipo not there anymore. And then DJ Augustin, I think he's going to have a bigger role off the bench. He's only like 4K across the industry, probably mid salary on Yahoo, I would guess. So I think he's interesting as well.
Berkey, you've had a couple of minutes to process. No John Wall. So talk to me about who you like with John Wall out. And also, I want you to hit on the fact that Harden will pop in the optimizers just based on the projection and plenty of value out there. But with this massive blowout risk now, are you more likely to fade James Harden tonight?
I'm not. So I'm always team Harden. So like, I love it on nights when like Giannis pops as like the optimal, like it was like maybe like there was a slate like within the last week, and I'm always team Harden in that situation. It's Harden because he gets the minutes. Like, until we see otherwise, they just don't rest this guy. Like, he's out there. They're burning him until the 2-minute mark at the end of the game, even in blowouts. That's what they did the last time when they played Houston, and blowout. So I think he wants to just light up his former team. And and also, like, we've seen these other teams like the Magic when nobody was in there, like they're playing guy, like these teams, they don't automatically get blown out. Some of these, you never know. I mean, I'm not one to predict blowouts. So I'm always team Harden because I count on the minutes. And if he gets a little short in the minutes, I think his production is going to be there regardless. And nobody has the kind of ceiling that he has.
Fair enough. We can go. I was on some of the same guys you guys. Siakam, 8,300 on FanDuel. I really like that play. Jeremy Grant's popping because he's only 6,600 on FanDuel. So I got to identify Jeremy Grant as a guy against Portland. Pretty good matchup there. Maybe he gets back on track. And Isaiah Roby, I don't know why he stood out to me as much as anybody on that front court for OKC tonight. I like me some Isaiah Roby. So let's talk about some centers here now. Let's move on to the center position. Christian Wood is a center on FanDuel. I think he gets a bump up now. No John Wall, even more shots, but he's been a little bit sporadic. Kirky earlier mentioned Robert Williams. This guy's been absolutely electric, man, when they start him and give him minutes. So Robert Williams in play, Andre Drummond in play. Can only take one on FanDuel, so that's a tough choice, man. One of them's 52, one of them's 63, but obviously Robert Williams has this massive upside. And we'll start up with Kirk over there on Yahoo. You can actually play two centers, so you get a little bit of a break. You could play both of them if you wanted to, but who are you likely to roster over there?
Unfortunately, Siakam is a center on Yahoo, so you get one more. So the other guys that I would be in play for me is Rudy Gobert. Noto definitely like him. Moses or Robert Williams, and I would lean Robert Williams between the two. Although Moses is fully capable of going off. I just don't think Moses is very good. He's been very good. It's just I just think he's a little rough, a little raw, and they're both raw. But man, fading Robert Williams is just tough when he starts getting those blocks and steals. But the cheap play that I like is Nerlens Noel against Minnesota. It's just the peripheral stat upside, the blocks. I mean, that's how this guy gets his fantasy points, is blocks and rebounds. And we've got a nice matchup with the Wolves, who are 27th in opponent blocks per game. His price is cheap. You get the situation where, what's his name is out. Mitch Robinson is out. Taj isn't going to play big minutes, so I think we can feel safe for his minutes. And I just like the upside. So that's what I'm kind of eyeing. And then if I wanted a stud, I mean, I wouldn't mind. I could play Towns on the other side in that game. I think Jakob Pertl is also, he's cheap, at least on Yahoo, and I'm sure on some of the other sites as well. Coming off of a massive game just in the run it back spot, but 2 massive games in a row. Just the pretty safe from a minutes standpoint.
No, there's so many good centers now. What do you think?
Yeah, you guys pretty much hit on them. If you're chasing per dollar upside, I think Moses Brown and Robert Williams are going to be your best options. They both have 40 plus fantasy point upside. They're both affordable on FanDuel. Love the Drummond call. We've talked about him enough. And then if you're chasing, safety for something like a cash game or single entry, I do think Rudy Gobert is a really strong option. He's 8,300 on FanDuel, 8,100 on DraftKings. A good history against Memphis. He's going to be around the rim all night. We know Jonas likes to crash offensive boards and be right around the rim. So I like Gobert quite a bit. And to Kirkwood's point about, not predicting blowouts. I mean, I tried to do that so often when I first started playing DFS, and it sways ownership so much when we get these big lines that you just shouldn't try to do it. More often than not, the game ends up being competitive. Even if it ends up being a 13-point game, Harden's going to be in there until the very end. So I like that quite a bit. And it's not like we have a lot of great pivots in terms of spends on this slate. I don't really want to play Giannis against the Lakers, Luka against Marcus Smart and the Celtics. Fox is overpriced. So for me, Harden's still the play up top.
Fair enough. All right, guys, let's talk about some sports bets now tonight, because we got our show, and even though Beer's not here, Beer's crushing, man. He's leading the way at 21-12 this year. But I have to say, he took a week-long break from us earlier, and then he caught up with 6 picks one week, and then bam, he went like 6-0. So, and now he's going to be gone for a couple weeks. This is starting to get a little fishy, man. He might be trying to sit on lead here and install on offense, and I don't know if that's going to work. But he's at 21-12. So, guys, we need to all catch up to him, everybody individually. So, chat, please give me some bets. I got some written down, but give me some more bets I can throw out there for you guys. And let's go through some picks. So I want to start off with Notorious here. You've got 3 teams, 3 games you've identified as some of your favorite. Talk to me about them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of betting the under on Knicks games. The slowest pace in the league. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league as well. And they don't really play the opponent's style of play. So despite the fact that they're facing Minnesota, I think they're going to slow the game down. Under 218 in that one. I like Phoenix to cover the 7 at home. I know they're playing in the second half of a back-to-back, but I think it's going to take some time for the Bulls to kind of get going with Vucevic as their center. So I like them to cover at home. And then I'll go the Jazz and the Grizzlies under 226.5. I think Mitchell being out just hurts the offense of the Jazz as a whole and probably hurts their pace a little bit as well.
All right, let's talk about Kirk. You didn't really get a chance to really dig in, so we're not going to hold you to these picks, but do you see anything out there for tonight, sports betting wise, that you feel like maybe has a pretty good shot?
I got 2. I got first, my favorite would be the Portland Trailblazers to cover the spread handily. I think they've actually moved. There's a lot of sharp money that came in on them. But Detroit is just mixing and matching lineup with young guys, and Portland's trying to get this team rolling here, especially with their Norman Powell fitting in. So I'll look for them to take care of business, and then I'll also look to the Knicks to take care of business. Both favorites. Let me pull up the latest line. I don't have it up. So Portland's -8. No problem. I say they're going to win by double digits. And then where are the Knicks? Knicks -3.5 look nice to me.
Yeah, Knicks. Yeah, the chat had already identified the Knicks, so that's definitely one of their picks. I give you my three picks, guys. First of all, the standings here: Beer 21-12. I'm at 17-16, so I'm just kind of paying the rake here. That's not good. Everybody was 1-2 last week, so it was not a good week last week. Noto dragging third place, 16-17, in the chat at 16-17. So we got some catching up to do if we're going to get beer here. I'm going Brooklyn -12 for the things that we've said already. I've said on the show. I really think it's a blowout. Rockets are they're in full tank mode. Even if they've got everybody healthy playing, they seem to still just totally roll the ball out there in the last 5 minutes and give up the game. They don't even care at this point. So they want to lose. Brooklyn -12. I'm going Spurs -2.5. It's kind of like a playoff game, I think, kind of like both teams really want to win. They're both trying to fight for some kind of positioning. I think the Spurs at home is going to be a little bit better. Popovich is a really good coach, so I think he's going to have them going here to 2.5 Spurs. And I'm going just like Notorious. I like that under on Utah-Memphis. No Donovan Mitchell hurts the offense for Utah, maybe not as much. And then Memphis, they're just kind of like a slower scoring team. They just don't score as great as other teams. I think they're near bottom third in the NBA in points, so points per game. So I'm going under right there. Chat, let's give the chat three bets. They definitely called the New York Knicks earlier, so write them down for the Knicks -3.5. Let's give the chat Portland -8 because Kirky liked that one too. And let's give them, the chat needs to catch up. So let's go ahead and give them over on the Utah-Memphis game so they can fight me and Noto on that pick. So somebody's going to win that one, either me and Noto or the chat's going to win it. So those are the three picks, guys. Somebody's going to get you guys might get a really good gift if you can muster up enough courage here to catch beer. You guys are going to get a really good gift at the end of the year. I'm not going to divulge what it is, but it's out there. All right, guys, let's get to some questions here. We only got about 3-4 minutes left. Let's talk some questions here. If you got any guys, fire them off. I'll get to them. Some of these I saw earlier, so I'm going to give you Kirky this one. Can you fade Harden and try a balanced lineup in GPP? Lots of value and lock Knicks will crush Minnesota. I don't know. Oh, okay. Can you fade Harden and try a balanced lineup in GPP, Kirk?
I mean, of course you can. You can always fade Harden. It's we've already gone over the reasons why you're predicting a blowout, but me personally, I'm going to be playing him. So I don't personally recommend it, but of course you can.
Noto, Moses Brown or Jakob Poeltl, a guy that we haven't really talked about on the show.
Yeah, chat has brought his name up quite a bit, so they're a little bit higher on him than I am. I will go with Moses Brown.
Okay, this one is a FanDuel question, so I'm gonna take it, but I'm gonna have to look it up. Is Jaden McDaniel a good play? Let me pull up Jaden McDaniel. Well, first of all, he's not even on my list.
He went off the other night, but
was it a fluke?
Well, it depends. It could have been matchup related. It could have been matchup related because they used him for defense.
It probably have to be like a blowout and it gets run because the Knicks are a good defense. I don't think he's in play for me. So I'm going to say no, but we'll go to Kirky on this one. You talked about Moses Brown and you talked about Robert Williams. This guy wants to know Robert Williams or Moses Brown tonight.
Time Lord, baby. Gotta go with Robert Williams.
Yeah, he's crushing, man. We'll go to Notorious for this one. It's an interesting one. Rudy Gobert or Andre Drummond in a tournament?
I think you need the other half of the equation if this is for FanDuel. For DraftKings, they're pretty close, so I'd go with Gobert.
Fair enough. Kirky. Well, no, Kirky, who's your favorite guy to spend up on in tournaments tonight? As all three name one guy. This guy wants to know three players, so we'll each give him one player to spend up for it on a tournament in your respective site.
I'm gonna not say Harden because I'm just that's too easy. But I'm gonna say Julius Randle is gonna be the low owned spend up tonight. Notorious,
who's your favorite spend up tonight in a tournament?
I'm not gonna say he's my favorite, but so much value out there that I'm gonna go with the guy with a really high floor, Sabonis. Nobody's talked about him. I don't think he's gonna get any ownership, and he's gonna be going up against Trevor Ariza. I like that matchup.
You know what? I just haven't heard this guy's name all show long, just about. So I'm going to say Luka Doncic, man. Why not? Everybody's going to try to jam some value in there, and they're going to play Harden, and maybe Luka steps up in a very, very competitive game against Boston. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning in. That's going to wrap it up for us. We're going to be back next Wednesday with the OG show again. I'll be back tomorrow night. I think maybe Kirkwood. No, that's Will. Will's on there with me tomorrow night. So I'll be back tomorrow, and then me and Kirkwood on Friday. So lots of good shows for me this week, guys. As always, good luck in those GPPs. For Notorious, for Kirkwood, for SBK, thanks for calling in. I'm Head Chopper, and we're out of here.